I said, okay. There was a pause. She spoke, the mom spoke to the interpreter. Would you be willing to take our daughter with you when you go home? And I'm like, wait, what? This wasn't a family that this was like a 16-year-old girl that, and she was too young, but she had the baby or any of those kind of things. This was a nuclear family. There was a mom and a dad. I don't know if there's any other brothers and sisters this time, but the three of them were there. And, by the way they were dressed and stuff, they were still at the lower end of a socioeconomic situation in Chile at the time, but they weren't dirt poor. And I said, I don't understand. And they said, well, they want to know when you go back to the United States if you would take their daughter. Because they're well aware that you could give her a much better life than they could ever give her. She would have opportunities in your country that she would not, not get here in Chile. And at first, I really didn't understand what was happening. I'm just thinking, this question doesn't even make sense to me. It took me a while to process it all and think, this was a rare form of love. This was one that was so rare that they would be willing to give up their child and possibly never see her again so she could have a better life. I think that's the kind of love that Paul was talking about when he was saying he would choose to be cursed or cut off from Christ if it would save his people. That's how much love that he had for them, that he was willing to at least make the statement. Whether you agree with it or not, he's making that statement. Like Jesus, Paul was willing to sacrifice so his people could be saved. For those of you who are watching at home, I'm going to disappear for a minute, but you will still be able to hear me. When we look around our worship center today, and even with chairs that are taken out because of COVID, we still have empty chairs around us right now. Do empty chairs concern you? Should they concern you? Just for a minute, if there's empty chairs around you, just close your eyes and think. Who would you want in one of those chairs? If I sit down here, say, Jim, who do you wish was sitting in this chair? Could be a coworker, could be a neighbor, could be a brother, a sister. If I get up and move around and sit in somewhere else, who do you imagine that would be sitting here? Her kids. If I get up and walk over and I sit by my wife, who do you imagine that would be sitting here?
My dad.
Her dad. He lives in the Dominican Republic right now, and his health is waning. I could walk around to all the different places where there's empty chairs and I could sit next to you. And hopefully, you have somebody in your mind. The neighbor, the workmate, husband, wife, brother, sister, son, daughter, friend at school. See, empty chairs should bother us. We should hopefully at least be praying for and thinking for that person that you imagine sitting in that chair. Paul is agonizing over the people he wants sitting in that chair next to him. Are we agonizing? The challenge or the question becomes, what are you willing to sacrifice?